if you split the two types of councillors, ward councillors and PR councillors. Ward councillor category is dominated by males, and the PR councillor, 7 of the 8 metros are also dominated by males. So there's a pretty much dominant status to the male status across the 8 metros, with the exception of 1 metro. We will see that. That's the eThekwini metro, where the female PR councillors outnumber the male PR councillors. That's the only instance. So eThekwini exceeded the 50% parity level that we are promoting, or at least is promoted through some of these protocols for female representation. We'll talk about that later on. Accurate information was not easy to find. That's when we tried to compare the 2016 and the 2011 period and the 2016 period for overall gender balance. We were not able to get the information to do that comparison. But as the situation stands now, 2016, there's more male councillors than female councillors, both ward and PR, with the exception of 1 metro, eThekwini. The chairperson mentions that earlier on, that the key reason, and this is one of the lessons we learned from the previous studies, that when the ANC suffers an electoral decline, this tends to translate into an electoral misfortune for women's representation. That is becoming pretty clear. And that's a number of factors that account for this. The ANC is the only party that has a better track record compared to other political parties in selecting significant numbers of women as public representatives. That includes even appointments for senior positions, the office bearers. That point will come clearer as we go along. Second factor, the ANC is the only party that has committed itself to the voluntary 50-50 target for women's representation. And the third point, the ANC seems to have, it has what's called a zebra stripe strategy of placing women or placing candidates in its electoral list. So that means for every man there's a woman, every man there's a woman. That improves the chances of women being elected as councillors. Now we are going to do the comparison of the individual metros. That, as I said, we've just seen the overall picture. Now we are going to do the comparison. Look at that graph. Look at the red bars compared to the green bars. The red bars are for male councillors. That's for 2016. The red bars are the male councillors. The green bars are female councillors. Just glance across, you'll see that the green bars are lower and lower compared to the male bars, except for Buffalo City. Well, not except, but look at Buffalo City municipality right on the left, so on the left-hand side. The gap is very small. If you look at that, the gap is very small. Look, as you go from left to right, the gap increases, the gap between the red bar and the green bar. That's the measure of inequality that has just occurred after the 2016 elections. That just gives you a visual impression of the domination of males over female councillors across the different metros. Only Buffalo City, the levels are very small, the gap is very small. Now, the individual metros, our observations. Buffalo City has the highest number of female councillors compared to other metros. 46% of Buffalo City councillors are female. The second city, we are ranking them here. City of Cape Town comes second with 40% of its councillors who are female. City of Johannesburg is third. eThekwini fourth, as you can see, right up to the last, 8, which means the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality has the lowest number of female councillors of all metros. The Nelson Mandela metro is doing a lot worse than all the other metros in terms of female representation. So yeah, as you say right at the bottom point there, the key finding is that male councillors dominate all 8 metros, with the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality and Tshwane to some extent. Nelson Mandela Bay and Tshwane leading the way in that regard. These are ward councillor. The next slide is about ward councillor. Our analysis once again shows the predominance of male councillors in this category. Remember, we just come out from the slide, the previous slide, about the broader picture. Now we are going specifically to ward councillors. Once again, this shows the domination of male councillors at ward level. Once again, look at the bottom line, right at the bottom. We have a total of 739 ward councillors across the 8 metros. 739 ward councillors across the 8 metros. Only 251 of them are female, or 34%. 251 or 34%. That means 66% of ward councillors across the 8 metros are males. 66%, 488. And then that picture, that slide, it shows you again the visual impression of the difference between male and female. Once again, the red bar shows male and the green bar shows female. You can see that in some instances it's almost double. Look at the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality. Look at the red bar compared to the green bar. The eThekwini, look at that also. Look at all of them, with the exception of City of Cape Town and Buffalo City Buffalo City is the exception there. The difference is very small, but if you go across all the metros, you'll see the difference between male and female councillors is pretty huge. So that was just a visual representation of what we just gone by. So the key findings I've just said: 739 councillors across all metros, only 34% of them are female. While male councillors constitute 66%, so that's a pretty big difference. None of the 8 metros had reached the 50% voluntary parity level for gender representation. So none of those 8 metros, in terms of ward representation, had reached that level. Some of the metros have a larger gap. I've just talked about it. Some of the metros had larger gaps compared to the others. And that slide, that table shows the gaps. If you look at the column on the right, the last column on the right, it shows the gaps. It shows that Buffalo City has the smallest gap between male and female. The green bar, you'll see I colored it green. It shows the smallest gap, Buffalo City. The 2 red bars, that's eThekwini and Nelson Mandela Bay. even Mangaung, you'll see the eThekwini, the gap is 49%. That's the difference between male and female representation in percentage terms. The gap is 49%. The second largest gap is Nelson Mandela Bay, 46%. So these are the metros in terms of the gap between male and female, going down from the smallest to the highest. And the overall gap between male and female, the overall total councillors, the overall is 32%, right at the bottom line. So you'll see that some of the metros have gaps larger than the average. It's only a few of them. Buffalo City, City of Cape Town, I think 4 metros where the gap is lower than the average. The next slide, these are just the rankings in terms of the gaps. eThekwini has the highest gap between male and female, followed by Nelson Mandela, Mangaung, Ekurhuleni, City of Tshwane. The last one, Buffalo City Metro, has the smallest gap, as I said earlier on. Now here we are comparing 2011 and 2016. We are comparing 2011 and 2016 in terms of ward councillors. We were able to get information to compare what the state was before the 2016 elections and afterward. Once again, go right down to the bottom line. You'll see that in 2011, there was a total of 695 councillors, ward councillors. By the way, the figure changes because they tend to have more redemarcations of wards and adding more wards and so on and so on, so the number will change. But in 2011, we had 695 ward councillors. And as you can see, 239 of them were females. In 2016, we have 739 ward councillors and 251 of them are female. So at face value, you'll see that the number of females has increased. The number of female ward councillors has increased from 239 in the 2011 period to 251 in the 2016 period. So there's a slight increase, but that's deceiving. It doesn't mean much. In real terms, it doesn't mean much, and I'll tell you what I mean in the next few slides. These are just the visual comparison of the individual metros in terms of what councillors from female to male, from females in 2011 to females in 2016. The green bars represent female councillors in 2011 period. The red bars represent female councillors in 2016. So you'll see that the first metro, you'll see the ideal situation is that the green bar has to be smaller than the red bar, has to be lower. So you'll see that's the case for Buffalo City, that's the case for City of Tshwane. Most of them, there's been an improvement with the exception of Tshwane. Look at Tshwane. Tshwane means that the number went down. Female councillors went down after 2016. Ekurhuleni stays the same. The Greenwood went up. So you'll see Tshwane and Nelson Mandela Bay. Tshwane and Nelson Mandela Bay. The number of councillors, female councillors went down. So this is just a summary. The 2011 period, out of 695 councillors, we have 34% who are females in 2011. Therefore, in terms of real numbers, as I said, the number of female councillors has increased. However, in percentage terms, that's why I said earlier on that the increase was misleading. In percentage terms, there has been a marginal decline in the number of female ward councillors from 34% in 2011, from 34.4% to 34%. So there's been a 0.4% decline in the number of female councillors in 2016 compared to, so the situation has just slightly worsened for female councillors from what was the case in 2011 to what is the case now. So the situation for female ward councillors has just worsened. Increases in the number of ward councillors occurred in 5 of the 8 metros, which means 5 of the 8 metros we saw the number of female councillors increasing. That's the Buffalo City, City of Cape Town, Johannesburg, eThekwini and Mangaung. And then the number remained the same for Ekurhuleni between 2011 and 2016. It didn't increase. And there was a decline in the number of female councillors, ward councillors in the City of Tshwane and Nelson Mandela Bay in the 2016 elections compared to the 2011 period. So the number of ward councillors has increased both in real terms and percentage. Sorry, the number of male councillors. The number of male councillors has increased in real terms as well as in percentage terms by 0.4%. You saw in the previous slide, the female councillors declined by 0.4%. That 0.4% went to the male councillors. So you can see the male councillors gained. So we've just finished talking about the ward councillors. Now we are going to the ward, so the PR councillor. Normally, as the chairperson said earlier on, in ward council elections, women tend to do badly. As the chair says, in some cases, citizens tend to not trust female councillors as ward councillors, so they tend to go for male councillors. As the chairperson said, maybe the masculine model of South African politics leads to citizens, ordinary citizens, not willing to trust females as ward councillors. But usually we expect that political parties will therefore put more names, more women's names as PR councillors, because it's easier for them to do that. PR councillors are selected from closed party list. A closed party list, that means it's compiled by the party and the party can decide who goes in there. It's not citizens. And as I just said, citizens tend to prefer male councillors for what elections compared to females. But for PR seats, the parties have the authority to decide the gender, the race, the geographic position, the demographic balance of candidates as PR councillors. So the parties have a lot more say in who becomes a PR councillor. So it's usually expected women would do better as councillors, as PR councillors, that parties would overcompensate by putting up more names, more female candidates to ensure more balance. But our analysis shows that this did not happen. And we believe this is a combination of two factors. As I said earlier, the fact that the ANC had suffered an electoral decline, plus the fact that parties have failed to put up more female candidates as ward councillors. We believe those are the two factors that contribute to less female ward councillors than we had expected. Now this table shows that. This is a PR councillor's balance between male and female. Go right down to the bottom again, the bottom line. You'll see that there's 43% of all ward councillors, 738 ward councillors. The 2016 elections yielded 738 ward councillors, and only 43% of them, or 317, are females. That means nearly 60%, 57, so that's a 60-40 split almost in favor of males. This is where we were expecting a 60-40 split in favor of females to overcompensate for what happened with ward councillors, but that didn't happen. So once again, we see male councillors dominating this category of councillors after the 2016 elections. And this is a visual representation of what I've just talked about. You'll see the red bars are for male councillors, the green bars are for female councillors. And once again, you'll see that the gap is smaller with Buffalo City Municipality to your extreme left. The gap is smaller, but in the others is slightly higher. And for eThekwini Municipality, you'll see that the green bar is higher than the red bar. That means eThekwini Municipality is the only metro where the number of female councillors exceed the number of male councillors. That's the only metro. All the other metros, women councillors are less than male councillors in terms of numbers, with the exception of eThekwini Municipality. Now, the observations we have made is more PR councillors were elected in 2016 compared to female councillors. That's just to reduce it to the basics. Out of the 739 PR councillors in the 8 metros, the majority, 57%, were male and 43% female. As I just said, only one metro has reached and exceeded the 50% parity level, and that's eThekwini. The other metros have failed to reach 50%. But the good news is, a little bit of good news at least, most of the metros have achieved about 40% representation for women, with the exception of Tshwane. Most metros have achieved 40%. I've just talked about this, so I'm going to... This is just the ranking of the metros in terms of PR councillors. You'll see right under the bottom that City of Tshwane has the lowest number of PR councillors of the 8 metros, whereas eThekwini has the highest. It actually exceeded the 50%. So this is the rankings of women's representation in the metros as PR councillors. This is the gap also between male and councillors PR. As you can see on the extreme right, the column representation gaps between male and female. Some of them have higher gaps than others. City of Tshwane and Nelson Mandela Bay seem to have higher gaps compared to other metros in terms of male versus female PR councillors. So metros with large gaps. As I said, City of Tshwane, Nelson Mandela, eThekwini has the smallest gap, and we couldn't get information from 2011 to do the comparison. The information had been removed from all the metros, and there was no database where we could get this. We go to office bearers. This is the last category, office bearers, councillors, MMCs and so on and so on. As you know, these are leadership positions split between the legislative as well as the cabinet. Legislature, office bearers, actually the council speaker and the chief whip, those are the ones we looked at. And for executive positions, the executive mayor, deputy mayor, and MMCs. This slide shows right down to the bottom. Go all the way to the bottom again. You'll see that in terms of speaker position, we had more female speakers in the 2011 period than we have now. There were four male speakers out of 8. Now we have 2. That means that the number of female speakers went down, and the number of male speakers went up. So you'll see female speakers 2011 4, 2016 2. For male speakers there were 4. So there was a gender balance between 2011 and 2016 in terms of male and female. But in 2016, male speakers actually increased in number from 4 to 6, while the number of female speakers went down from 4 to 2. Okay, so this is just the summary of what I've just said. That there's a decline in the number of female speakers after the 2016 municipalities. 4 metros had appointed male speakers, and they have retained those speakers. That means that 4 metros that had female speakers, that had male speakers in the past, retained those male speakers. Only 2 metros out of the 4 that had female speakers retained the female speakers. So what it means is that there was no female speaker who replaced male speakers, whereas male speakers replaced female speakers. So once again, in the category of speakers, the females suffered a setback. Chief whip positions, same situation. 2 chief whips. In 2011, it went to 1. So just a summary, 1-sentence summary out of male chiefs. So the chief whip position, it's a male position. It seems to be a male position. That is a visual representation of it. You'll see for Nelson Mandela Bay is pretty clear. Look at the red bar compared to the green bar. It's quite huge. Some of the metros, look at City of Tshwane, look at City of Cape Town. Look at those 3 cities. City of Cape Town, City of Tshwane, City of Nelson Mandela Bay. A common thread across those three metros is pretty obvious. And if you look at Buffalo City, that's the only metro where the green bar is higher than the red bar. So that means Buffalo City is the only metro where there's more females than males.